All right, we are on cue again. I believe this is episode 8 of Friendology. Thank you for joining in. This is a recording, it's not live. We'll get to the live session pretty soon, but I'm going to cue our sound music. I'm going to put someone on the spot. Josh, are you ready for the introduction?
No.
Frank?
I'm not doing it. I've already done it once.
Go ahead, Binu.
I
You're-
love
you're
when
so
he says
good.
on the spot. Okay, here we go. Good evening. Welcome to Friendology. This is episode 8. It is a little bit after 7 o'clock-ish, a little late to start, but nonetheless, we are glad to have you joining us for another episode. Tonight, we're talking about childhood best friends. We're going to share some of our experiences with relation to investments made once upon a time, how they're still impacting us today. We have with us here tonight Joshua, Roger, Frank, and myself. Jonathan and Rob and Chris are not here with us tonight, but hope you enjoyed time with us on Friendology tonight. Thanks for being here. All right. How many of you are still comfortable?
Very comfortable.
Yes?
It's,
Okay.
It's some like 30 some odd or 54 degrees out there maybe. I
We
don't know.
are in Joshua's
But it's
place.
not bad here.
Yes, this is beautiful. So those of you who can see his beautiful library here, I'm always attracted to books, but Josh has been working hard at keeping the place cool for us here tonight. Let's do a little check-in with ourselves over the last couple of weeks. 2 weeks ago, we were still on Zoom, but now we finally have, for the first time in person, you get to see what Frank looks like in person. So Frank.
So do I get to check in first then?
Oh, sure.
I kind of feel like the last 2 weeks, like we're coming out of the pandemic, so it's like I kind of feel like I'm blinking and stepping out in the wilderness a little bit. Kind of like seeing people I haven't seen in a long time and seeing people in person. And it's funny. Like I had some contacts, but it was this is like it's like a bit like you have to get used to it again.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Seeing so many different people, but it's been lovely actually. It's been refreshing to reconnect.
And just for you guys, this information, I did not have to show Frank how to do a hug. You know, like spread your arms, walk towards each other, wrap around. You know.
He remembered how to
Gave me an info pamphlet in case you forgot, right? Like step 1.
He was good. He was good. It hasn't been that long, thankfully.
I still need to. I got my hair cut, but my
Yes.
beard didn't get cut, so
Your
I'm a
beard
little
is
like
quite bushy.
homeless looking. But you know that's all the rage these days, right?
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna do it. My hair like sticking in the odd spots. We need to talk to Roger about this. What blade do you? What's it like to be the clear minority here, Roger? Like hairless. How often do you shave?
Every morning.
Every morning, including your head.
Yeah,
So it's just
everywhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm already thinking I need a haircut as well too.
Yeah. No.
Now, Roger, we've spent a lot more time together the last couple of weeks, but our audience has not had a chance to have my pleasure. Give a little recap on your couple of weeks this past little while.
It's been good. Like
Been
you,
good.
we're coming out of the dark, so it feels great. Getting back into being normal.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No stress of work.
Albert, didn't our health service said we can
Yeah.
now hug
Oh, is that what they said?
our health person
Really?
for Alberta says you're now allowed to hug your loved one.
Oh.
Yeah. You didn't see
Are
that?
you supposed to
didn't see
hug your
that.
health
Uh,
care provider?
There's that one politician who disagrees with that. Or she was aiming for the mayor.
Oh, the mayor thinks it's too soon, but the province thinks it's everything's fair game.
Ah,
Okay.
right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a bit of a disconnect between those two.
Yeah.
Sure enough. Yeah. Joshua.
Doing well.
Yeah.
Amazing. Enjoying this, as everyone's saying, you know, getting out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And excited to have parties and
Yeah.
go to parties and live music, live everything, right? Sit on a patio, have a drink with friends. Excited that it's summer. We can
Yeah.
do stuff outdoors, which
Yeah.
is also pretty cool. And then my kids are out of school as of, what is it? Today is Monday. As of Friday, and so excited to do some camping with the kids and just
And my son's gonna join your guys'.
That's
camp
right.
community. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. He's asking, say, when is that, Dad, again? When I told them about it at the end of last month, they thought it was for the end of last month. So they're really disappointed to find out they had another month to wait. They're like, oh, come on. So I can see that.
That's funny.
Again, for our audience, if you do not know, this is Joshua's home. This is where all of us met each other. Here at Joshua's home, I believe, right?
That's right.
So, Joshua, you are like the community gatherer of sorts, right? And making a lot of connections here. And so,
Community connector extraordinaire.
yeah. You're going to put that on your business card?
Yes.
You
Yes, I
totally
should.
should. I put kindologist on my business card, right? And I just made a video on that today, too. But nonetheless, yeah, so Joshua is one of the most hospitable. Frank has also been very gracious that way. We've not had the pleasure of meeting at Rogers yet as a group. But
We'll get there.
absolutely, yeah.
You cook for us.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Apparently, he doesn't need to cook. Just bring the food and just let it sizzle in there.
Yeah.
Roger's on the 12th floor of this apartment. Beautiful view from this place, but nonetheless, it is
Pretty hot.
pretty hot.
No central air or portable area yet. So it's smoking.
Okay.
Yeah.
On my end, I've been doing. How have I been doing? I've been feeling stretched. I've been feeling stretched because I've got business ideas that I'm so excited about putting into play, but it was always a struggle between business ideas that I'm trying to put into play, but then there's also work as an Uber driver, and so the two just never played well with each other. So at the end of last week, I said, screw it. On Thursday, I believe it was, I said, I'm going to go home. I went out to drive for the day, but then I said, you know what? I need to get this work done. So I went home on Thursday, and the next few days, I just devoted to working away on like putting ideas down and then putting my website together. So it's gone through a few evolutions. So even from the last time you guys saw it, it's gone through another huge
Oh, I have
evolution.
to look at it again.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
yes. I'm kind of excited about it. And then Roger gave up his place. Was that on Saturday, Roger? Or Friday? It was Friday. Anyway, Roger gave up his place. I went and I took all of his equipment. He's got all this studio equipment, which is fantastic. That's probably why some of you saw my video with all those lights, and people are guessing, "Oh man, that's high tech, Benny. What are you doing?" You know, so thank you for being gracious.
It's
that
your
way,
studio
Roger.
too, bro.
I appreciate that. Again, you're so generous. And so I put a mini course out already on happiness from my perspective, and some thoughts on that. And I'm encouraging people to go check out BinnyMasters.com. So I've been quite busy. And then yesterday went back to work to hang out with the kids. So yeah, it's been one of those seasons that is uncertain. I feel like I'm moving into an uncertain zone. I do not know about the success or lack thereof of where I'm heading into, but I feel like I've sort of taken a big risk. I stepped over a line that was a huge risk, right? To say I'm going now, you know, and so that felt good in some sense, and yet there's still that anticipation of the unknown. So here's to new beginnings. So if you do get a chance, I would love for you to consider going and checking out BinnyMasters.com. There's a tier for membership that you can be a part of as well. I would love to have you as part of that as I continue to celebrate and encourage and put out more kindness and encourage you guys to partner with me in that way. So, good summation. We'll catch up on the other guys for a month's worth of stuff when they get to join us next time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But let's talk about memories. I love talking about memories. Part of that happiness mini course that I did, the last element or ingredient that I said for happiness in my reference was gratitude. Gratitude for me is a way of not remembering, or sorry, not forgetting. So when I'm grateful for things, I'm remembering something that I'm grateful for, right? And so this is a great opportunity in the midst of our Friendology theme that we have to consider once upon a times, how those came to be, why they were significant and meaningful, and how they have shaped us as people, and how we look back on them in the way that we're forging in our current context with friendships. That's what I was thinking.
I love how you say that, how they've shaped us as people. And I think that's, it's like ponder my story. Well, I'm sure we all have multiple stories.
Yes.
As I ponder one of the stories, it's like, that individual's gone.
Yeah.
But he's not, because he shaped me as a person. And so aspects of who he is lives on in me and others as well, of course, right?
It sounds like a gift they left with you that continues to pay the dividends and then impacts others that you come across.
That's right.
Holy crap, that's amazing.
I love that perspective. Anyways, yes, it's
Mm-hmm.
helpful perspective.
For sure. Well, let me jump in first because I've given this some thought because I'm always sort of
Yeah.
like referencing and saying. So for me, we're talking about specific individuals that have been really impactful. So I don't want to like necessarily go through an eternity saying, here's my first friend that lasted for 2 months, and I'm talking about the most meaningful. Like, this is like I would say my first best friend that I ever had. His name was Ross. Ross Hawks. So um, Ross Hawks came at the end of a 2 3 year dry spell of friendships for me. So the context was I'd moved to Canada with my family, and I'd been sort of floundering, is probably a good word to use. I was floundering in the social dynamic that I was now in that was unfamiliar. I had no idea how to make friends. I had no idea how to fit in. And so I was an 8 year old kid trying to figure my way forward. I really desperately want friendships. And I tried to reach out and, grab on in my, I need someone to like, love me and spend time with me and that kind of thing. It just wasn't going very well. But I remember when I first saw Ross. I remember it like it was so clear. I can't swim, but me and my brothers, my family were in the small community park. It was a very small town in BC. We were in this stream and we were literally just splashing around because I can't swim, my brothers can't swim, but we were pretending to swim, right? And then there's these four kids that walked up. They were unfamiliar to me because I'd never seen them in our small, tiny community. They came up to the park bench we were at and sat down. And I happened to look over at them. I'm like, wow, those kids look really nice. I wish I had the guts or the courage to go and introduce myself, but I don't. So I'm just gonna kind of stay over here. So I was kind of sad at that prospect that sort of melted away because of my lack of courage. I just didn't have it in me. That next Sunday, guess who walked into the doors of my church? Ross and his siblings and his mom. And I'm like, this is it. This must be fate. And I defied sort of my usual, shyness.
Timid. Yeah.
Yeah, and I walked right down the stairs and up to Ross and said, "Hey, my name is Ben." My friends called me Ben back then. And I said, "I'm Ross," and that was the beginning of something really beautiful. And how that impacted me was I'm trying not to get emotional. I was lacking in confidence for myself personally, right? So I was thinking I was unlovable. I was thinking there's something wrong with me, and so I just couldn't figure out what it was that I was missing along the way there. But when I first introduced myself to Ross and seeing the progression from then on, something was like a switch for me, like night and day, whereby um, before I had no friends. I was sort of like no one wants to hang around with me, and so I very very much felt like outside the community, looking in, desiring that. But when I met Ross and the way that he treated me, and I'll get to that in just a moment, all of a sudden there was something within me that said, I'm okay as I am. There's someone who's going to be okay with me as I am, and that was like something transformational for me. Transformational
Wow.
in the sense that. It wasn't that I had to prove myself anymore to anyone. And how that translated was my community started responding to me in a different way. My way of acknowledging my existence for one, saying, okay, this is Benim as he is. We're gonna take Benim as he is. And also by way of acceptance too. And it was at that point that I saw my fortunes shifting socially. And my fortunes shifting socially where now not only did I have the respect of my community and people that I interacted with at once upon a time were like, yeah, who's good Ben? But now they were actually genuinely interested. Not to say I want to be your friend, but more so by way of respect, saying, "Hey, you're in. You don't have to work at being in anymore." And that was the shift that I saw when I met Ross, and something for me internally transformed. And it was beautiful because what Ross gave me was a gift of seeing me and acknowledging my existence. I didn't have to put on a show or have to like earn his interest in me. He was just like, "Hey, I'm interested. Let's hang out. Let's do stuff together." He invited me to his place. I invited him to my place. I remember at that time I was actually quite possessive because I was a terrible brother. So he also showed kindness to my brothers, and I didn't like that. I was like, "He's my friend. Stay away. Find your own friends." That's just a part of my maturation process. But it began many years of a really deep friendship, and then we had another friend join us as well, and his name was Raj. Raj Parsad. So it was the trio, the three of us, and We did many things together, but the moments that we shared, the memories that we built together, the ways that we invested and made time for one another. We would all walk to school together, like we just lived along the same street, and we'd walk back home. We'd do snacks together. It was just uh, that investment that over time continues to help me see the world in a different vantage point. Whereas once upon a time, I was thinking in scarcity mode, like no one loves me, I want something, to a point where I was like, I feel really rich. And when I had that shift internally for me, I was able to give so lavishly to so many others, even as I enjoy these critical friendships in my life. And I think the real heart of that for me in my experience was that someone saw me, someone acknowledged me, and someone said, yeah, you're worthwhile as you are, and that gave me permission now to step up into who I really was. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I still had struggles for many more years with codependency and other things that I had to work through, but that was the beginning of something meaningful where someone sort of said, I see you in your humanity and it's worthwhile. Continue to be you. So that was really awesome.
It
Yeah.
sounds like that helped provide that sort of internalized sense of I'm I'm valuable and worthwhile as a person, and that's sort of that base that then you can explore other
Oh my goodness,
connections.
that's a good point.
And
Yeah.
if you had another connection and say someone rejected you,
Yeah.
it was like, I mean, it still hurts.
Yeah.
It's still hard to get rejection, but
Sure.
it doesn't hurt nearly as much because you have that base friend
Yeah.
or friends.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so you can have that confidence of I just be myself, and if I get rejected
Yeah.
or if something doesn't go perfectly,
Yeah.
it's not okay. It's not good, but it's I'll get by.
Sure.
It's like a sense of safety.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sort of like now I feel like I've got something to fall back onto
Yeah.
and someone to give me a boost of confidence, figuring out, and that basically allowing yourself to grow and blossom the way you want to grow. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I can see why that would be. I think I feel the same way. Definitely, it's not good to be alone unless that's what you want. But yeah.
But as human beings, it's just that element of our social dynamic.
Yeah.
Like, for some, they may be introverts, and they're like, I don't like the crowds, like you, Joshua. Like you're not that. You're so not that. Like you're like, I thrive in community and people around. Whereas other people are like, there's too much going on for me. And yet, even both contrasts they're considered, there's just that real element of, does someone know that I exist? Does someone care that I have my perspectives? Does someone spend time enough to invest in saying, "Yep, your ideas matter, even if I don't agree with them. I'm still going to engage with you and at least interact that way and exchange something even more tangible." Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
So how old were you when this happened?
When this happened, I was about 10, 11. So it was about grade 6-ish when we met.
Yeah.
So I was finishing grade 5, going into grade 6, so 10, 11 years old. I'd already been here, like I said, a couple of years, right? But that was when things started shifting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Also,
So if Ross is here and listening to this, Ross or Raj, just wanted to say again, thank you for your friendship. Yeah.
That's good. I was just thinking, this story also speaks to the. I've never experienced this, immigration and coming to a different culture and starting from scratch. And some people are more, and some people are less vulnerable in that. But I personally, if I was in that situation, especially as a young person, I would really struggle with it. So I empathize with the difficulty in that for sure.
Part of the gratitude as I reflect on their investment in me that way, that has kind of helped form me, is thinking about where it's taking me as well. I think without any hesitation or concern about exploiting this more than it, I'd say like thousands and thousands of individuals that have come across and been able to pass that gift of something tangible by way of saying, hey, when I'm here, I'm with you 100%. So let's be in this moment together. That friendship investment that they've had in me has paid so fruitfully in so many others. It's like, and I'm not trying to puff myself up, but when there are some individuals that are well-known house names, but you never know who are the people that invest in them. They're senseis, they're masters, they're teachers, they're investors. But what an amazing investment to sow into someone, and then they're able to go and just reap a bountiful harvest, especially by way of their lives that they touch. And so I have a gift. I acknowledge that. I have a gift of connecting with people. I have a gift of helping them feel like someone did acknowledge that they were there, you know?
Yeah.
And it's an amazing thing. So it's like that may have been the seedbed that was sown back then. Mm.
So did you move here as a young child, or were you born?
I was born in Africa, so Ethiopia
Yeah.
was where I was born. Grew up in Kenya. When I moved, I was 8 years old.
Oh, okay. So,
Canada.
okay, I'm just trying to
That's right.
put
No
the
worries.
timelines
I
together.
appreciate
Yeah.
you asked that.
Yeah.
'Cause our friends-
My experience was similar in a way,
Okay, that's
but
right.
not quite the same. So I had European parents.
Mhm.
But yeah, we moved from overseas to settle in Calgary, and that was really traumatic.
And from Africa
How
as
old
well,
were you?
too, right?
From Africa, yes.
Yes, so guys,
Yes.
if it wasn't obvious, he's Caucasian, but yes, they have.
Yes, we moved here from Africa,
Where in Africa?
Zambia.
Zambia.
Yeah.
And how old were you?
6.
Okay.
I cried probably for the first 6 months I lived here.
Oh my goodness.
I got relocated from a warm, sunny, fun place to a frozen wasteland. So yeah, it was, and kids at school were mean, right? So I'd say kind of like the friendships that I developed in elementary school. Like once I settled down in Calgary, that like grade up to grade 6 was sort of like the golden age of my friendship world and my childhood, because it's sort of like I always had. I think this set the pattern for the rest of my life. I always had 2 good friends.
Mm.
Never really knew or cared about anyone else. Always like 2 really, really close friends. And definitely there was 2 of them throughout elementary school up until about grade 5, where I met another guy. He became a really close friend. And then sort of like as you get older, like people go to different schools, they drift apart. But what I really miss about those days was sort of like, those kind of like long summer days where you just run around the neighborhood and just have to check in for dinner. But I mean, I guess they don't. Maybe kids don't do that anymore these days. But back then it was just a free for all. Like just go and you're not allowed to cross this road or that road. But for the rest, like we don't know where you are. We don't know what you're
I
doing.
remember those days.
But you're kind of like
And nobody
roaming
had a
the
cell phone
neighborhood.
either.
Yeah, no cell phones. So the parents honestly, in one particular moment, did not know where we were.
Mhm.
But that was so great. Like I think that kind of experience, just to kind of like have that little window of freedom to just kind of be around your peers and do whatever you want. And I was a good kid. I never broke the rules. I didn't try to steal things or go to doing things that would get me into a lot of trouble. Because if I did cross the line, my parents were pretty strict. But yeah, definitely that making friends was so easy, right? Like at that age, it's sort of like, hey, do you want to come over?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'll come
Simple,
over.
right? Yeah.
Well, this just let's hang out, let's play, let's talk about stuff that we like to do. Like we talk about Transformers, or a friend had whatever, like the first generation Nintendo, like that kind of thing, or an Atari. That was a lot of fun. Or just like let's go and play sports together, or let's just like roam around the neighborhood on our bikes. That was the golden age. Then everyone hit puberty and everything changed. But definitely. I think it set the tone for sort of like my introvertedness in the way that I tend to develop smaller number of very close friendships, as opposed to. I'm not saying that the other way around is wrong. It's just different from the way I tend to form attachments. Is close friendships and like a lot of one-on-one interaction. And that seems to be something that's carried through to adulthood. As an adult, I definitely have more than 2 close friends, but it's been a journey in a way that like there's been stretches of time where I didn't have very many friends, and right now I seem to have quite a few. So, it's interesting how that all played out. Joshua.
Love the delegation.
I'm passing the torch.
I love delegation.
It's, first of all, before getting into any specifics and friendships, it's just really interesting as you describe set the scene of
What once used to be.
what once used to be in the world of being a child and exploring friendships and the community and the neighborhood, etc. It's just it's almost like this visceral sensation comes over me as I
Takes you back.
re-experiencing that time.
Did you have a childhood like that too?
Oh,
where
yeah.
You just ran around the neighborhood with your friends.
Absolutely.
I did as
Yeah.
well too.
Absolutely.
Your parents didn't know where you were at 2:30 in the afternoon on a Saturday,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Actually,
yeah.
no. In
absolutely.
my neighborhood, it was a small one. They may not have known, but the way they would find out, the moms at dinner time would go out on the back porches and then start yelling for the kids at the top of their lungs. Catherine, Andrew, and like wherever you are, like you're just like listening for your name.
That's
kind
like
of
a
thing.
bird colony.
Absolutely, and that's what they would do in my
So
neighborhood.
funny.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So that was
But
a form of communication.
I'm also pondering, how you're saying that, it's easy to make friends. And as I look at my kids, for example, especially when they were young, we'd go to, for example, just the other day we went to a park, um, just an outside, pretty big park, and within probably within 10 minutes they like have a new best friend and they're playing around in the park, right? And so yeah, meeting new friends is easy for them, but and of course myself as well as a young person, but at the same time in some contexts it was harder because if you're in for example, like a school or a classroom, and maybe it's changed, I don't know, but back then some kids could be really cruel, and it could be like, hey, I'm trying to be perceived as confident or as high value person in this classroom, whatever. So I'm going to put you down if you're over there and you're kind of lower on that scale or ladder or whatever analogy you want to use. And so it could be harder, it could be more difficult to connect with people in that way, depending on your sort of social status in that domain or in that context rather. And I experienced a decent amount of that, especially probably early to mid teens. Struggled with. I had a few good friends for sure that were there for me, but in the school setting, like it was a dangerous place to be. But the cool thing about the friendships, as I ponder, like in high school specifically, we had so much time, right? We had almost all the time in the world, so we could spend, like, you have breaks or recess or lunchtime or whatever, and you're spending all that time with your friends. And so in that sense it was easier to become closer friends than it seems it is nowadays. You get older, you have a job, you work too much, 40 hours a week, 60, like, and then you get a family and then kids and all the things happen, and it's harder to really it takes longer, I'll say, to have developed that foundation than it was back then. But yeah, I think maybe I'll take that thought to a little bit, fast forward a little bit. Had some really couple friends historically that have really, I think, transformed me. One is we'll start with kind of a sad situation. His name's Richard Reed. He what? Do you know another Richard Reed? It's kind of a common name.
I know another Richard Reed, and if you're gonna say that you don't even want to say you don't want to say the name, but the one friend that I lost is Richard too.
Richard as well. Oh, that's wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So my friend Richard got cancer, and he had leukemia before I even met him, actually, and he had received a transfusion or whatever they call it. So he overcome it, but there was side effects that I think I knew him for a couple years, that caused a lot of health problems that eventually he passed away from. But what just an open person, and just we talked about everything. And I get, to me, the safety. This is really important for me as a friend or any connection, really, is that safety to just talk about all the things. There's nothing that is off the table. You can talk about all the things, and he was that person for me. Um, Whatever we did in our world, I think we were both kind of in the dating world back then. We were in our mid 20s, I think, something like that. And yeah, we debriefed all of that stuff, and then eventually we were roommates on two different occasions, actually, in two different houses. um, and we just we
And
spent
the
lots of
friendship is good when you still are roommates and friends. Because that's like make or break for a lot of people,
Yeah,
right? It's like,
yeah.
oh, this does not work out as roommates.
Yeah, living with someone is a whole different ball of wax.
So that's an amazing confirmation of friendship.
absolutely, yeah,
Carry on.
yeah. I'm just trying to think like what other aspects of that connection was really good. And I mean, there's not a lot of like hallelujah moments in terms of our friendship or amazing characteristics that were like he had that and no one else before or since had that. There wasn't that. It's just a good solid human being and just a really comfortable connection where we're just comfortable being ourselves and spending time together. And I would say, when he passed away, like that was difficult on me, and I clearly had a really strong emotional bond with this man. Um, and I think maybe that was part for me, a big piece for me, that the realization that hey, I can have these really strong bonds. I don't think I had a really strong bond like I had with him with any romantic partner before that. That was probably the earliest really good quality bond. Of course, I had friends before that. I'm not saying he's my first ever friend, but
Sure.
just the depth of that connection is just wonderful. Yeah, and he passed away, but the memories they'll never be gone. They'll always be there, and the characteristics of who he is. I'm still kind of in contact with his mother, and of course we knew a lot of the same people, etc. So we live on. Yeah.
Sounds like you really created a space that you was. Oh, it's not like it was intentional where you both got together and said, okay, the premise of our friendship is we're going to be safe people for each other. It's just he was, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I think, in so many topics we saw the same truth, quote unquote.
Yeah, yeah.
If you know what I mean.
We were aligned in the perspective.
Aligned in how we saw things.
Sure enough.
And
Yeah.
we listened to each other. We cared about each other, and we enjoyed time with each other.
So it was just a couple of years of friendship that you guys shared, but it was deep.
Yeah. 2.5 years maybe. Yeah.
What was the fast track like? Was it like the moment you met him, or did it take a month before you're like, okay, this guy?
This is an interesting question. It was very quick.
It was very quick.
It was one of those.
Kinda
Actually, he was living with my aunt when I met
Okay.
him,
Okay.
and my aunt lives kind of a couple neighborhoods over here, and
Yeah.
said, hey, this guy, he had cancer, he's recovering, and he wasn't working because he had disability because of his physical stuff, so he had time. So that probably helped a lot. And just as soon as we connected, it just you hit. There's that spark. There's that connection, and yeah.
Okay, and age range at the time when you guys met? Was it in your teens? Was it like 20s?
Yeah, it was mid 20s,
Okay.
something like that. I think he was a year or two younger than me, but
Amazing.
I think he might have been 25 when he died, give or take. Maybe I was 26, 27.
Is that unexpected?
No. It's
You saw that.
he went through so many ups and downs,
Sure.
and maybe that was part of it. Maybe
I was gonna
going
ask.
through difficult times. I say together, but I mean it was
Honestly.
his thing, not
Yes.
mine. But still,
You were along
I
for the ride of the
journeyed.
experience.
I journeyed with him, and so many other people did as well, and seeing the pain and the medical issues, etc. Along that journey was, it was tough, and so it wasn't unexpected, but it's still very sad. I mean, you never want to see a 25-year-old person pass away. That's just far too young.
Yeah, I was also thinking about the place that may have played in the friendship by way of, hey, I'm not sure if it was a very cerebral, we don't have time, so we're going to make the time count versus, oh, this is just how it is because we're so well aligned in the midst of circumstances beyond our control that bring us to this point of, we're going to enjoy this while it is.
Mm,
It made
right.
me think about even my own reference. Here, let's say my friendship with you guys. If I were to find out, heaven forbid, that Roger has only like the next 2 months left, how would that impact our way? Like, what would shift for us in our intentionality in the midst of that friendship? Say, okay, let's uh, let's reflect on that connection while we still have them here, how it's going to evolve, but then how we're also going to treat other members that we still have access to. Right? I don't know. It makes me think in terms of, for example, I'll never forget Joshua when I was with some of my tree climbing friends. We're on our way just to walk to get some ice cream on a day off. And we're just jovial. We're walking along, and all of a sudden it happened so fast. As we approached the intersection, we witnessed an accident involving a motorcycle getting T-boned by a truck. Right, the motorbike rider was in the air, and he was way over in another part of the air, the site from impact. Right, but all of a sudden, as we watched everything unfold afterwards, as we were kind of shaken out of our wow, we were just hanging out kind of thing. All of a sudden, life and death before us kind of dynamic. There was a soberness that set in as we walked away from that, considering the moments that we were sharing. What once we were like taking for granted, all of a sudden we're like, huh, I think I need to call my mom and let her know she's meaningful, or I need to spend this time saying, how can we like calibrate with each other, right? So I'm just even wondering in the context of a friendship, if that was part of that gift in your friendship with him, Richard.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I agree with kind
Yeah.
of where you. I don't know that it affected it.
Gotcha.
I don't know that for example, spent more time with him because of that than
Gotcha.
if he was just a
Which is
friend
amazing.
that was healthy, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
though maybe, but also,
Mhm.
I mean, I didn't know he was gonna. It wasn't unexpected, but I also didn't know.
Gotcha.
It wasn't like, oh, definitely he's gonna. Month and a half
Month
left here. There wasn't
Yes,
anything like
yes.
that. So,
Which still speaks to the beauty of that connection. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, absolutely. But you do bring up an interesting topic, and maybe that's a whole new episode, another episode to talk about, like
Mention
the
it.
idea of, the if we have limited time, right? And so,
That would change for sure.
yeah, yeah, what might change as we have that perspective of the our mortality, other people's mortalities, etc.
Mhm.
Um, and how would that change things? And yeah, I don't have the sense that it would have changed in my
Yeah.
setting,
Yeah.
but would it change in future friendships?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'll be doing a funeral this coming Monday,
Hmm.
and as I'm going into that family midst, I was part of another funeral for this family like last year. That was happy times. Since then, things have shifted and changed in the family structures where there's a lot of animosity, a lot of things happening and going on in that in between these two funerals. And so I'm even thinking about how death affects me and the way I see or perceive connections socially. Do you know what I'm saying? And what is it that I'm going to do to communicate with this family in the midst? Like I feel like I'll be standing in the midst of a lot of stuff going on, right? But what kind of things am I going to share with them that is going to be in some way meaningful to help them sort of be aware time is not indefinite, and things that we say or do now, they kind of have effects. So with what kind of time we have, what kind of investments would be really helpful for progressing forward so we don't have regrets. But I love your story though.
Mm.
It's beautiful. Mm.
Roger, you have a story.
Oh, I do. I unfortunately has some elements of regret.
Mm.
Oh.
So I'll fast forward to me being in Canada, immigration, and um, there's two friends. I already said one friend's name, Richard. I wasn't gonna say. So what's interesting about my story is that I didn't have one friend. I had two best friends, from earlier years, earlier history, and they were both brothers. I'm gonna rewind to talk about that. But one of the brothers passed away 2 years ago, and the regret that connects into that was that he passed away in Fort Lauderdale, a heart attack in the bathtub. What was the regret for me around that was I had known he wasn't doing well for a long time. He wasn't doing well, not health wise, but he wasn't doing well in terms of getting a job, doing things. And I had always had it in the back of my mind that I need to book a flight, take a week off, go down there and reconnect with him. And to this day, he had sent me a video about a year ago on WhatsApp of himself. He had a stroke, and he sent me a video of him learning how to walk. And since that stroke, I was trying to get myself to get down there, and then he had a heart attack 2 years ago while I was living in Edmonton. Fast forward to the fact that he was married. He had married, separated, 2 kids who were in college, and I'm their godfather. And then the brother. Now I'll start to rewind and tell you. So my regret was I never made time, and unfortunately, he never had a chance to get to know me and my authentic self. So I'm going to go back in time, and I'll explain the authentic self piece along the way. So this friendship for these brothers originated in Jamaica, where I was born and grew before immigrating to the United States and Canada. And these friendships formed like about 12 years old in Jamaica, in our community, in our neighborhood. And Richard, who passed away, I became friends with him first because my mom would send me to piano lessons. And as earlier years, I was very withdrawn and introverted. Any elements of being extroverted I have, I cultivated it as an adult. I've always been a recluse, introverted, and a lot of it had to do with being bullied hard. I was bullied like crazy, like the worst. I was the worst experience of bullying. But I raised the bullying not to get a compassion or empathy, but I raised the bullying because I was on my way to piano lessons and I was being bullied by a group of neighborhood dogs where we lived. Talk about when you were young and you were out to 2:30 and no one knew where you were. We lived that existence in the community. And Richard came to my defense. And he was a thicker, heavier, stronger guy. And I'm skinny now, but I was like stick and bone. And so I was bullied on my way to piano lessons because I was going to piano lessons and I wasn't allowed to play sports. And he came to my rescue and we became friends instantly. And for someone to have cared in that way, to step up to the neighborhood thugs, be a friend for someone that, and we lived like 2 streets away, that resonated. But what was interesting was I started playing music in the church, and in our community, we all went to the Catholic church, neighborhood Catholic church. His brother, who was about 4 years older than me, who now lives in the Cayman Islands with his wife, and his 2 kids are grown and elsewhere. His brother took to me and stole me away from Richard in friendship because his brother was interested in music. And he showed up at church, and I had just started, because I didn't remember he played piano. I was actually thrown into playing piano in church as a musician. They were like, here, you know something, do it. And his brother saw me playing in church. His brother was learning, I didn't know, piano, his older brother, like 4 years. And his brother literally sabotaged the friendship I had started with Richard and stole me away. And because of the music, and then his brother had a car. He drove. We were at the same high school, and Richard was at the school across the street.
Oh.
So it was competing high schools. So I was torn now between loyalty to Richard, who had rescued me originally, and Albert, who was now taking me under his wings and showing me friendship, really strong friendship because of the music, and we had a knack for that. And then we ended up being co-musicians in church eventually. So those 2 friendships went along side by side, and what was hard over the years was the fact that the 2 brothers didn't get along. And then I was their friend, and they had to keep their secrets. So that was the hard part. But they were, for some odd reason, I guess they knew they could trust me, and I never betrayed either one of them, and we were solid friends. And then the older brother would pick me up, drive me to school, drive me home from school, and then took me under his wings in the same protective way as the younger brother did, where the bullying was concerned. So here I had all this for all these years. Thankfully, in the past 2 years, the brother who's older than Richard and I were, when I was in Cayman Islands.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, I've had opportunity to sit down with him and have authentic conversations about myself. Like pretty much around the funeral of Richard, or just before the funeral. I think that sort of helped ignite it, and so I'm glad that that has happened, because we weren't just friends; we were community brothers, and we grew up together. Our parents knew each other. Our mothers knew each other. When I stole the car out one day to go practicing my driving without him, my parents, my mom called his mother to to come and help where I was. I drove the car to some place and parked it, and she was there to help. Anyway, so those two guys were the founding historical friends that I've had, that are memorable, that have impacted me, because they were the first persons who showed me unconditional love and care. And we never had conversations like you had. We never had those open conversations, but for some reason they felt the need to protect me, and for that I appreciated that. And the older brother got married and didn't make me be the best man, and that made me mad. And the younger one, I was his best man. So I had this really interesting, what's the word, syncopatic relationship with him. Is that syncopatic? Anyway, interesting relationship, and it was between the two brothers, and it was formative for me, and it was good. And the only regret, the big regret, was Richard passed away, had a heart attack in a tub. He had a stroke the year before, and I never managed to make the time to get to Fort Lauderdale from Edmonton. He died, and within 2 weeks, I was like on a plane, and I was like, how could I have made the time now to go to the funeral when I should have made the time before? So that was my. So I couldn't speak at the funeral. I couldn't play at the funeral. I couldn't sing at the funeral. I couldn't do anything. I just made sure I was there and present for his funeral. Yeah, young guy, heart attack. Yeah, he didn't take care of himself health wise. He didn't go to the doctor. He didn't, he ate the wrong foods, and he had gained some weight in later years. But yeah, those are my two. That's my story about historical friendships, and I don't think I've replicated it. And we're still in touch, though Richard's deceased. But still in touch with his son. Calls me all the time, reaches out to me for fatherly support. Oh, one thing that came to mind, the one thing that we didn't get in the time me being friends with both of them, both families had fathers who were absent. And we didn't have someone to teach us how to be friends, how to talk, how to love each other. And so we were driven by, the society and how things were. There was love and there was connection there in my bifurcation between the two brothers in a different way. I was friends with both, but we didn't know how to talk with each other. We didn't know how to. We didn't know. We didn't know how to. We supported each other, and that was because we didn't have father figures who gave us some sort of model for that, or sort of direction for that, as we were in our age then, when it all started. So, yeah. So, Richard's brother, if you ever listen to this, you know who you are. I won't say his name, but I'll say he lives in the Cayman Islands now. Yeah, he's got a lovely wife, and they've been married for a long time now. Yeah.
An interesting story.
Yeah.
I was reflecting on, as I listened, one of those key elements that probably we don't sort of take note of, but I think actually happens is I've sort of understood the evolution of a friendship where even before the relationship part takes precedence, there's the revelation part first. And that's what I was hearing strongly in your experience, and saying, I had this real time with these two individuals, which was formative, and then even later, years later, you still had that desire that you wanted to express, you were able to express it to one, but the regret is you weren't able to express it to the other, and that's the revelation piece that says,
Mhm.
hey, in the midst of what we had tangibly by way of connection, there's this very real element that does someone actually know me? I've heard that even in dating contexts,
Mhm.
where maybe an individual loves the frequency of many partners,
Mhm.
but eventually at some point they draw a line and say, actually now it's not more so who I get to have this intimacy with,
Mhm.
but does this person actually know who's really underneath here, who's
Mhm.
like more at the core of me, right? And that
Yeah.
translation is saying, does someone actually not only know, but also understand and
Mhm.
accept and take you as you are, even as you're evolving in your.
Yeah, Richard never got to know me, and now I'm trying to be present for his kids.
Yeah.
His daughter is in New York. Well, they're both in New York actually. His daughter and son are both in New York. His widow ex-wife and I are very regular, and she actually makes sure that I'm involved because she wants her kids to have the male figure presence, and she tries to pull me in on that.
Yeah.
So we do that video calls, visits.
Yeah.
I went to his college, threw
Yeah.
money in his pocket, did all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
I do what I could do,
yeah.
and but you said something I wanted to touch on. But his the eldest brother, who's still alive, um, it took me a long time to give him my authentic self. I didn't start feeling safe. I didn't start feeling comfortable to tell him. I don't know if it was a funeral that caused that for me to find the strength or the ability to tell him who I am as a person, and in spite of that, to still not be feeling rejected or not appreciated. And we've since had some really intense telephone conversations because there's a lot of backstory to my earlier years that he was present when the backstory happened, but he wasn't privy to the backstory. And one of the things he said is that he wished he had known about the backstory when it was happening, to have been there to support me while it was happening. You know what I mean? And these two friendships were two completely different friendships. The older one was one who was more expressive and communicative, and the younger one we were more hanging out with girls in the neighborhood, playing around. I remember, I don't know, he's divorced now, so his wife, but the one who died, I remember it was me and him, and sometimes we would have two girls, and we'd go to the beach, and we'd mess around on the beach. And so it was more that kind of friendship with the younger one, messing around with girls. I hope my mom isn't listening. Yeah, exploring sex with girls, and falling in love and doing more dude dude kind of stuff. But the older brother was more contemplative and effective, so it was more time around music and conversation, and he drove, and I didn't drive, so. If you remember being a teenager and someone in your group had a car,
I remember
yeah,
those days.
yeah. I always,
You're a god.
yeah, he was a god, so I would drive around him, and then his girlfriend. He had his girlfriend at the time. He's still married to her, the girlfriend that he dated when he was like a young teenager. So she would at times be allowed to drive around with us. So it was interesting. Yeah, it was interesting. Quite a backstory there. Yeah, yeah, and bullet points, of course. I just gave you.
I don't know. Even as I hear all these experiences, it's almost like a new threshold in our friendships. I'm like, I see a little more of you, Joshua, like in your context and how you came to be, or Roger, the same way.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Because I was listening to the three of you, and at different points, I got emotional. Internally. You obviously were a bit emotional.
I was not. It's just onions around here.
that resonated with me, and those early years as someone who was withdrawn and bullied, horribly bullied, and then I hadn't had a chance to hear about your early years, and as you mentioned what that might have been, I can't contextualize for me because I can't have a sense of what that could have been, and then yours too, and then that we connected. We've lost our first friend, historical
good quality.
who happened to be Richard.
Yeah.
That kind of like ricocheted on my heart a little bit. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, first of all, how are we doing for time?
What is it now?
It's 8:19.
Let's go for 10 more minutes.
I have what I was thinking is we've dug deep into a handful of stories here, but if there's maybe a few just kind of popcorn style. There's a few little short snippet of stories,
Yeah.
and I'll say mine
Sure.
to start perhaps. Two friends, independent, different times of my life, both I think 20s, one earlier and one later. One named Sean and one named Daniel, and both became very very good close friends. And you mentioned regret, and this is what made me ponder this. Is like, well, it's not so much that I regret back then. We had a great friendship, but they moved. Again, different experiences. One moved there, one moved there, but um, we're still in touch. We still talk every now and then, but not very often. And so I'm pondering my own emotions as I think about my current status of I don't keep up with them. And obviously, they're not part of my friends group in Calgary because they don't live in Calgary. And so that makes it harder, right? To and how often do I go to their city? How often do they come to mine? Very rare, if at all, kind of thing, right? So it makes it harder. And but am I justifying? Like I still need to give them a call and check in with them every now and then. And I don't do it as often as I feel like I ought to, and also would like, because they're still quality human beings. And I'm sure as I describe this, you all would probably resonate with the idea of as soon as I call them, it's like back in my early 20s. It's like, oh yeah, it's like we haven't missed a beat kind of thing. So maybe regret's not the right word, but feeling a little dissonance, anyways, in terms of my lack of efforts in those connections. But anyways,
I think there are key points in your life where events happen that cause you to look on these historical friendships where they have meaning, and you either need to do something or you haven't done something and it creates an emotion. We had a conversation recently where I talked about Orlando and Florida being a significant thing for me that I needed to have touch points in that. And pre-COVID, and I had made a pact with myself. I have another friend who became a friend in adult life, um, who was more a friend to me than I was a friend to him. But I try to really reverse that now that we're living in completely different cities. He's married with 2 kids now, and I try to do that by being intentional about vacations and trips. So pre-COVID, for about 2-3 years, I was trying to plan vacations in such a way that I would be going to places to give myself opportunity to connect with certain people who have history with me. Right?
Interesting.
Yeah, and it was working for a while, and it was happening just before the time of Richard's death. And I remember in 2018, the friend I'm mentioning in adult life, his name is Bruce, happens to live in New York with his wife and kids. The problem I had with my kid, my daughter, you guys would know this. I tried traveling with I have my daughter and my niece, and I call them both my daughters, and they're both the same age. Try to do a vacation with kids that age, and you try to do logistics to go look for a buddy and a friend, it doesn't work, right? These teen girls want to go to Times Square or parties or go shopping. And so I learned from that these trips had to be for me and specific to me and not incorporated with anything else. And I managed to pull one or two off, but I'll gift you with that in terms of the friends that you're reflecting on, and how you think of them, because something is going to happen. Unfortunately, it was Richard's death. Prior to Richard's death, Richard's ex-wife came down with cancer. She had a mastectomy, and then that created also another emotion. So these are the things that come up in life, maybe health-wise, makes you think about these people, because whether we realize it or not, they're inside of us, some way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? Even with new friends that we develop that are more proximal to us, right? Which are important. Yeah. So and see what you can do.
Mm,
Yeah, see
okay.
what you need to you know
Yeah.
to schedule video call,
Yeah.
phone call. This is
Absolutely.
important.
With
Mm.
reference to that, I was thinking about how in my history, as I look at like the evolution of friendships that came and went along the way,
Mm.
I was really, really thankful because in my experience, all of those were really astounding friends, and it wasn't that I knew how to look out for good friends. It just seemed like I got matched up with amazing people in my life, and that was critical because I think, like you were saying, they leave their essence in you. You know, they leave their impact on you,
Mhm.
which made me think about that phrase that says, "Tell me your friends, and I'll tell you who you are,"
Mhm.
or how so many struggle with the people that they are sharing their lives with because of the impact that they have. And so one of the things I learned for me was to be watchful of who's influencing you because they are going to make an impact on you, right? And so in my context, when I have opportunities to connect now, I'm just at a place in my life now where I'm a lot more confident about what I'm bringing to the table. I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, I know individuals. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a lot more influencing in this setting here if I'm going to spend all this time with this person, or I want to sit under this person because they have a lot to be able to, share with me, and I want to get as many insights as I can. So just that element of, I mean, for our listening audience, is to consider where do you find yourself in those contexts with people that you have in your life. Who's doing the influencing? Are they really good people to have influencing? Because not everyone has a really strong awareness of where they are. And so if they're not certain of that, they're easily influenced, right? And so knowing just kind of what quality you're bringing into your life that way, is it really good or not? I remember, I may have mentioned this on a past occasion, but one of my Uber riders, young guy, and he was like, "Man, I just want to hang out with you and spend time with you because we're really vibing." And I said, "Honestly, it's free and yet it's expensive." And I think you friends know this because, yeah, I want to make time for my friends. We will make time. Like Joshua, you say, "Hey, I need a call or a talk." I'm there, kind of thing. Frank, we have these connections and we invest ourselves, saying, "I'm willing to go out of my way to inconvenience myself because of what we established by way of friendship." There's a free access, and yet it's also expensive because when we get together in our friendships, we mean business. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna work through stuff that needs to get worked through. It's not always hunky dory roses kind of thing. We're always just vibing. Like Joshua, you and I when we first met, holy crap, it's like yeah, like right on,
Woohoo.
absolutely. And yet over time, we still need to realign. We need to clarify. We need to hash the things sometimes because that is what life is as we go through shifts. And we're learning that way, right? So for those of you who are watching this, again, that kind of a nugget or insight that I would throw out there would be who who are you spending time with, and where are you at personally? Are you in a place where you can be a strong sort of no, I don't want this kind of influence, or are you more malleable and needing really solid influence in your life? And then what kind of where are you going to put together to say who are the helpful resources, the helpful people in my life who can build me up instead of tear you down? Because there's a lot of expressions of friendships that are unfortunate, where there's maybe gaslighting going on, maybe where there's abuse going on, where there's manipulation being expressed. So many other elements where you're thinking, I gotta stay because I need something socially, but you just don't know that there is amazing sandy beaches where you can go play instead of this mud puddle that you're settling for. You know, something along those
That kind of
lines.
speaks to the quality of having the kind of friendships where you can have those difficult conversations and come out the other side stronger.
And where it's fair because I'm even wondering about context, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where there is those engaging conversations, but it's a one-way street, and then the one person's feel like I didn't feel listened to.
Yeah,
So a
you need
really
to be able to feel heard.
two-way street that way, right?
Mhm.
Say, hey, we're able to engage and compromise, so we can experience something that we're bringing by way of magicians and a new evolution or something, right? That's a really critical part. I agree. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. This has been wonderful. Hey, just last nuggets. I just shared one here. Do you guys, let's say one of our audience members, I'm just going to create a generic context and I'm going to ask you to speak from the heart to the listener. The scenario is they've been listening to our conversations of impacting friendships. They see our collaboration, even as current friends here, and the things that we're talking about is substantial, I'm not confident that there's a lot of this kind of engagement going on out there. I'm not confident about that. But for those who are maybe in that context where they're like, I would love to experience something like that we're modeling or trying to present, what would you say would be a helpful starting place? to sort of embark on by way of hope, saying, hey, it's possible to experience this. Maybe make sure to have this little piece in place for yourself as you work towards what could be.
I'll go first.
Please, Friendology.
Working at becoming comfortable with yourself.
Beautiful. I love
which is an ongoing work in progress for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm much better than I was yesterday, and I'm much better than I was 2 years ago. But it's still a work in progress, becoming comfortable. Because as I mentioned in my earlier share, the inability to bring my true and authentic self to those two historical friends had a long-term impact. More ways than one.
That's beautiful.
I would agree with that. I'm probably just going to echo Roger and just say, like, it's being understanding who you are and kind of being true to yourself is got to be critical. And it just in the sense of like not like getting wrapped up in acceptance and being influenced maybe in the wrong way, but being sort of like, this is who I am, and this is and being able to communicate that in an effective way, assertively, and without it turning into like confrontation. And when you come from that base, I think it can be really powerful in terms of kind of expressing yourself in the context of friendship.
I must say, to pivot on that you guys are the most comfortable adult friendships I've ever had.
Me too.
Yeah. in my adult, honestly,
and
because
that's why we're doing this, Roger.
Yes.
Why we're doing this is because I'm not certain it's happening out there as often as it could be. And so when we have something that's beautiful, it would be really beneficial to share and say, what could be? We're not saying this is the way it has to be, but carry on with that.
Yeah, no, you guys are, I mean, in all my adult years, in my attempts at, or my little, even with the one friend that I was, I'd say sitting close to Bruce in New York, I didn't bring my whole self and my true self. And so it wasn't comfortable for me. Right, but I've been the most comfortable as an adult in friendship with you guys, and I credit it to only recently, saying, hey dude, just bring your whole self and be you, whatever that is. And it's always been hard to do that.
I think, to answer your question, there's a number of things that can be done. I think I'm a fan of talking about our emotions. It's a big one. Don't just hide it in. Don't just talk about the concrete, the stories. Those are good. Activities, stories, wonderful. Talk about or ask. How was that for you? Just get into those emotions that really can deepen those connections, and also just talk about what's going on. Like, hey, Vinian, this bothers me about you when you did this over here. Like, give feedback and then ask for feedback. When I said that over there, did that rub you the wrong way? Just really, but obviously have that approachability and that openness and comfort, so that it's a safe space to both give and receive. Which I will say is not always the case. It's not a given. But if it is a safe space, which I think a lot of people perceive it not as not being safe enough, or they don't have the skills, when it'll be fine in most cases. Again, some exceptions, but just do it. Have those deeper conversations. I've done therapy with so many, even couples, and obviously there's some similarities there where it's like they're not talking about this stuff. And then we start talking, ask them questions, open up. How are you feeling? How was your day? Talk about it from the deeper level instead of just telling a story. And it just transforms their connection. So why would that not also do the same in friendships? Right? So that's my thing.
In conclusion, you guys, as you're listening, friendship is a really gutsy thing. It's a really courageous thing to embark and say, I love what these guys were sharing at the end and saying the best part you can do is give yourself. Give yourself by way of, here's who I truly am. And the best part that you can give to your friendship is yourself, who you truly are, because that's what they're wanting. That's what makes us uniquely individual, special, and irreplaceable. So, take that gutsy step and share who you truly are. As Joshua was saying, share how you're feeling, doing it from a place where you're still giving place for that friendship to grow. Saying, here's what I'm saying: friendship is worth pursuing. Take the challenge today. Thanks for joining us on Friendology. Oh.
That one was particularly emotional.